Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight we'll be talking about the Amityville Horror House and other strange happenings in the Long Island region of New York State. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen to the show, and ways to support the show at the website, which is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And please check out all the links in the episode descriptions for links to all my friends that help with these shows, from Jen, the Arcane Observer, who we'll be talking to in a moment, to Michael Strange of Trouble Minds Radio, both the show and the station, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can listen to all of those shows. Great shows from Trouble Minds Radio to my show to everyone else that's there as well. So thank you all for being here, and looking forward to this discussion. And now that we've got the tech issues worked out, that apparently it was a Discord thing all over the place, because I don't know how else to explain it. Looks like we got everything going. So Jen, welcome to the show.
Hey, James. Yeah, I'm happy we figured that out. I don't know what it was, but no big deal. And I am also looking forward to the show. It's gonna be a good one.
I think so. I have to say it. Talking to you beforehand a couple days ago helped a lot, because at first when I was just looking at the house, which is kind of ironic in a way, I wasn't finding a lot, except for just about the house. There wasn't much else I was thinking of or finding. But then you mentioned just a couple of things that we'll talk about here in the show, and as you saw, and when I shared I'm not going to share all all the article links in the in the show description, because I have like 9 articles altogether. I don't think anyone needs that many. But if you're just interested in anything that we talk about or anything unusual about that happens in Long Island, I definitely recommend to the audience you just do some searching around online. Put in different combinations of words like Long Island, UFOs, Long Island, haunted places, wherever your interests are at, you can find things there, and more than that even. So yeah, I don't know if you want to start, Jen? You want me to start, or how we want to do this?
Oh, you go ahead and start.
Okay, so looking at the chat here, first of all, looks like everyone's here. Thank you all for being here, and also, like I said, for sticking with us as we work through the tech issues. And but yeah, so my first I didn't even know for a long time, because I'm terrible with geography, because maps don't really do well for me, because I'm legally blind. It's kind of hard to see what's on maps when it's all little lines and numbers and letters and things. But so I'd heard about the Amityville house, of course, many years ago, but I hadn't really known in general where it was at, or at least it never stuck in my mind. And but it is in Long Island, which is a part of the state of New York. And just about anyone who's looked into anything paranormal has probably heard of this house. I think at this point, even if you're not into all these topics, you've probably heard of the movies and the fact that they were reportedly based on some true paranormal experiences that a family had in this house. And this is, of course, the Amityville Horror House. The Amityville Horror was a book, basically, written about the experiences, or at least about based off of them. From what I've heard there's a lot of conflict about, or at least debate about what was true, what wasn't true, what was exaggerated, all these kinds of things. But the biggest, the probably the most well-known parts of this start with, of course, the DeFeo family, which were this family of 2 parents and I believe it was 4 or 5 children, that moved into this house. It used to be 112 Ocean Avenue. The address has since changed, in part because of all the attention that the house got. And I'm not going to bother sharing what the address is as of whenever these articles came out, because again, one of the other amazing things about this is that after the family that dealt with the hauntings moved out, I've never heard of any other family having any weird experiences there. So, and it's very much people just want to be left alone. Although I am surprised that someone hasn't bought the house, and not that I really want this, but I'm surprised no one has bought the house and turned it into some kind of a tourist hotspot paranormal investigation site based on just the history and the lore around it. But anyway, so the first major things that are probably that a lot of people have heard about with this is the murder of the DeFeo family by the oldest son, Ronnie DeFeo Jr. And we don't need to go into the details of it, but basically he shot and killed his family. And there was tension from what I've read between him and his father, and things like that. But he also claimed that there were voices in his mind urging him to do the killing, and some think that he was hearing evil spirits that resided in the area. So, but and so this set of murders happened all in one night, and in 1974, according to this article here. And the next family that moved in was the Lutz family, George and Kathy Lutz, I believe it was. And so when this family moved in, they started having experiences, or at least that's what the reports are from them and everything. I just realized there's a lot more in this article about the DeFeo family, but if we go through every little detail, we won't get through much tonight. So, it's when the Lutz family moved in, they reported having experiences, and these range from, and it was George and Kathy, and it ranged from supposedly slime coming down from the walls, which is probably one of the most extreme claims that I've heard in any kind of haunting. So that always makes me wonder, not that things can't happen, but also it's kind of weird. Eyes peering into the house from outside, which I believe connects to what you brought up a little while back, Jen, with the daughter, and seeing this this creature, and she had a name for it, and we figured it out after, that it was Jody, and I believe it was supposed to be a pig or somewhat pig-like. I've seen a couple different History Channel documentaries on all this as well, but and just objects moving and sounds like people marching through like a marching band going through the bottom floor of the house when the family was on the top floor. Anyway, so eventually all this drove the family out, and they got an author, Jay Anson, to make a book about their experiences. So since then, there were people that investigated the house, including the Warrens, as we talked about in the previous episode. Also, another one, Hans Holzer, who I've read some of, he did an investigation as well. And so we can get more into that later. But yeah, Jen, any input on that so far?
Also, I heard a lot about, listening to Amityville and reading the book, of course. And I remembered too after that it was Jody. And of course I didn't remember it on the spot, but the little girl was talking to it. She drew it like in a drawing as a pig.
Okay.
And then reference to it that looked like a pig, but looking at the area and the land and everything. I was really interested in that, but not right away. It was like kind of, sometime later, and it kept coming up about Amityville. And, then you do kind of wonder about the town itself. The town is small, it's like 1,000 people pretty much. It's a village. And it's located in the town, it's in the town of Babylon. And I thought that was really interesting. Babylon, in general, just the concept. And I was like, well, but there must be a lot of towns in the United States that are called Babylon. But so I got to looking, and actually in the United States, there's only 2 towns in the United States called Babylon. And they are the town of Babylon that Amityville Village is located in. And then there's the village of Babylon that is located in the town of Babylon. So that area right there being called that. Now, the history of that, I found that I guess the mother of one of the founding pilgrims, that settled in that region, sort of coined the term that the town was like Babylon, or that it was going to be the new Babylon. And Babylon means like a gate of the gods or something to that effect. But she was saying that it was going to become that. And I thought that was really interesting. And then it stuck, and they actually changed the name of the town to Babylon. So Amityville is a village located in New Babylon, basically, this kind of concept. And then 83 miles from Amityville is Montauk. And we've heard of all of the weird things about the Montauk Monster and all of that. Well, that's literally like just a drive away from Amityville. And then across that water onto Giglow Island, there were recently, that's the center right now of that whole serial killer thing going on. And I found that there's they're calling it the LISK, the Long Island serial killer. And they're tying it to that something like 120 women have been found since the 70s in that small square mile area right there around Amityville. So there's sort of that's kind of odd, but then the whole premise of the time period that Amityville was founded, and is there, trying to figure out kind of the energy of how that's all working, but the location for Montauk, I think that there's some kind of center of activity beyond, that must be going on. I don't know what they were doing back in the age of the settling of that area in the 1600s, in the 1500s, or any of that time period. But I suspect something odd was going on there with it. Now, with the DeFeo family, the fact that now the boy may have been troubled, Ronnie DeFeo. There might have been some drug use going on and things like that. There was rumors of the mafia or the mob somehow being involved. I heard that sort of theory, but there was some supernatural things to it. So there was this concept that the gunshots, none of the neighbors heard gunshots. I heard that was one thing that was going on. And that was odd. On the other hand, if it was mafia involved, or if this is a small village of they call it a village, but a small community of so many people, I don't know. If there was mafia involvement, you just never know, how complicated that could get. But then with the Lutz family, I don't think that they were trying to get any kind of fame or notoriety, but when you do try to find anything now about Amityville, the town, you are only going to find mostly stuff about the Amityville house. It became notorious, So I wonder if there's some kind of link to that. There could be something more specific and interesting about the area that is now overshadowed by the Amityville Horror. They made the movies about it and everything. And of all the weird cases in the United States of murder, it's interesting. This, and there are paranormal aspects to it. But so I think that it's interesting that the pop culture, that we kind of were drawn to really build up Amityville. It's a cult sort of status paranormal story. Everyone has heard of it. And that's what they think of, with Amityville. But it was really odd when looking at the that serial killer, that it's Amityville. too.
Yeah, I never heard of that either. That Lisk. That's and I mean that it centers in right on there. The mob explanation. I wonder if that could be why no one heard anything. If there was, I mean, if they sort of
Yeah.
a scenario here, just playing it out. If either the neighbors were related somehow to the mob and they were told don't say anything, um, or
And
if the mob came in and or both, the mob came in and was actually there with DeFeo and sort of did it all at once, had it done just all at once, and set him up, whether he agreed or not, to do this. And that's a concept that I've heard of the possible mob connections, but it's really never taken any further than that in like the documentaries I've heard over the years.
no,
So,
but they were all in their beds. That's really weird.
right, it
And
is.
big family, and they were all in their beds. And then just he called it in himself too. As so he took the fall for it, right away, and just didn't even know what he'd done, so to say. And there's a lot of stuff, rumors floating around it, but just that aspect of it, the possible mob connection, and then the location of it, and um, it's a possibility. I mean, I think it is. But then the follow up though with the Lutz family, I mean, if their stories be believed, and I think it's just bizarre the type of stories they were recounting. And it did seem genuinely that something paranormal was going on. And then we talked about before with the Warrens, that when they went to investigate it, that they did have paranormal experiences, or they believed that they did, and other investigators did too.
Right.
That
And
could
that's
simply
that's
that could have been a catalyst, though. I mean, the deaths and the violent, that could have made it paranormal. It may not have been like paranormal to begin with, and maybe it was just mafia driven. But and again, maybe he was motivated. I mean, you would have to be motivated by something to do something so horrific. So that's
yeah.
off. So there's something off with the boy anyway. I know that he would call it in, and that I don't know, unless I didn't hear I'm sure if we were to look it up and listen to the 911 call again, and there should have been more like a watch party almost to like see, like, because it almost becomes like a true crime thing at that point. But I don't know. The paranormal aspect to it though after that. And then I think with the Montauk thing, I thought that was really interesting. The sort of Stranger Things aspect of it and everything, that, the show coming out. And that's exactly where, I mean, it's only 83 miles away. It's at the tip of Long Island.
Well, and we know that base that was there had underground levels,
Right.
and but they're not. We're not. No one's allowed to go to those underground levels, so we can't ever know how far or how close some of those underground levels get to. I mean, there's so many cities that have underground levels in them anyway. So many areas that not even just with modern technology, but just tunnels are made in the past or used in the past for all kinds of things. Um,
I'm
for
looking at the year.
transporting
I'm gonna look up the
goods.
year
And
for the Montauk thing and see what year that was.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, it probably says in one of the articles I found, but I've listened to them all now, and that's all. I've only listened to them once, so. But but yeah, the other thing is that whole island. Some of the articles I found, there's it's there's reports of UFOs and even just strange creatures seen on that island, different points of the island. So it seems to be, and I don't know. I have a feeling that when it comes to any kind
Okay.
of ghost or UFO sightings, they're all over the place. But yeah, go ahead with what you found.
Okay, Montauk is located, Camp Hero Montauk, is located in Montauk, Suffolk County. Now, Amityville is also in Suffolk County. And apparently this was utilized for various training activities during the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Spanish American War World War One and World War II. So that whole area there has a huge history of things like that. Now, the exact year that Montauk Project was taking place, but I mean, just that right there. So Montauk is located in Suffolk County. In that distance of space, it's still Suffolk County, and that's the same county that the town of Babylon and the village of Amityville is located in. So that location is really interesting. Now let me see. The Air Force Base station that was 1952 when they started with that. But all of that
Okay.
going on, you know. Okay, so then there's the what was it, 1968? So I'm seeing the 60s. Montauk Project was the late 60s. It had a 20-year run. So you have the War of 1812, the Revolutionary War, the Spanish-American War, both world wars, all sort of utilizing Camp Hero State Park, which is this huge acreage site, in Montauk, in Suffolk County. It's the same location as Amityville, the same county, the same area. So I don't know. There's something to that too, I think.
Well, so many of these military bases, they're operating technology that uses a lot of power. And I
Mhm.
always wonder how much of that, you know, stirs things up in just the entire area with energy that we don't know what it is yet, different kinds of energies or whatever. Um, that could, I mean, one of these articles here, it says there's still a huge radar dish that was left behind there. That's, was left there. And, but then again, like a couple of these articles say, you're still not allowed to go anywhere near the buildings. You're only allowed to be in this park that's around the buildings. And then even with like the supposed like the Montauk Project, the idea of the Philadelphia experiment being connected, all these things where some people, depending on who you ask, it's all fake, but then there's so many other people that say no, there was something to it, even if not everything that we hear about is accurate. There's something
Right.
to it, and to me, it's just without being there at the times, how does anyone know? Um, but yeah, and the similarities between Stranger Things, which I am going to review at some point in a series of shows for the podcast. But yeah, so it's just there's so many things, and we've talked about before how even if some of these things didn't happen, they've been put into the minds of the public that they could have happened, and people go to a lot of these kinds of places. A lot of people want to go to places where things are said to have happened, and they're thinking about that. And who knows if that could, like you just mentioned earlier, that could be a catalyst for something to actually happen there anyway, even if there wasn't anything before. The focus on it could lead to things possibly happening later.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the Amityville horror storyline kind of playing along uh, is happening there in Suffolk County overshadows, and you don't think about. I mean, everybody just hears the stories. So you hear Amityville, you hear that story, and it's a paranormal story about a murder, and then the Warrens, this haunted case. Then on the other hand, you hear about the Montauk Project, the Montauk Monster. The Montauk Monster situation. Well, just that right there. You hear those. We'll talk about the Montauk Monster in just a minute, I guess. We could. But I mean, you have those two different separate accounts, and then you have, I'm sure there's more we could find, but just this is sort of just, scratching the surface in a way. But you don't think of those two being linked in any way. Like, it doesn't come to mind that they're in the same location, that they are in the same county. That Montauk Project and that Montauk, base is in the same location as Amityville. You just think of one or the other. And then as far as the town of Babylon too, and this whole sort of more occultish concept, or at least um Babylonian concept of renaming it Babylon, and that it's the only site in the United States that's named that. And then so that goes into a whole nother kind of weirdness. But I think that it's almost intentional that one overshadows the other in a way, and not only that, that you don't draw a correlation between the two. people wouldn't, and you wouldn't think to, and it's hard to see why you would, but the Montauk Monster, there's sort of this weird thing about, that basically it was an experiment that got out, and I mean, Stranger Things did touch on that, but I mean, much exaggerated, but maybe not, but there were stories that the people, they somehow got in contact with, like, another dimension or something. I haven't seen anything but the first episode of Stranger Things, like the first, season, a couple episodes out of the first season, so I'm not gonna be influenced much by that, luckily. But the
Yeah,
Montauk Project and the Philadelphia Experiment, I probably need to catch up on that show. I'm sure it's a good one, but I've only caught the first season. But the initial story with Montauk Project was that they had some type of instrument, kinda like kinda like with the Nazis, how they had that bell. It was kind of like that, and this would they'd turn it on or they would somehow, utilize it in some way, and then it was opening up some type of, I guess, a portal. I don't know. Portal stuff is really complicated and, and fuzzy, but why the military was even messing around with that to begin with in these world wars goes into a lot of the occult aspects of war to begin with, or why, utilizing anything, any instrument in any way in war to get in contact with other dimensions. It's really odd that our government was ever doing any of that, but they were. So that's really, and then when you look at the, like you mentioned, the Philadelphia experiment, that was one of the very first stories I ever heard. I heard that like so many years ago, and I was listening to it was Phil Bielik. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but it was this whole CD series that I got a hold of from a friend of mine, and they had it. It was the interview that Art Bell had with Al Bielik about the Philadelphia experiment and how people were. They basically were, you know, somehow traversing time, but they were. I remember specifically, like they were melded into the ship, and people disappeared, and some didn't come back, and the ones who did were very sick, and they were trying to make it invisible, make ships invisible, is what they were doing. So that whole region there, I don't know. So it does sound kind of like there's. I hate to say like it's so rote to say like so much going on there, but once again, you don't really think of the two being linked, but they are in the same location. And if you were to be in that location living there, you would definitely see that there is some kind of connection. Maybe. At least I would think that. I'd be like, this place is weird. This
yeah,
county is a strange county, you know?
yeah. Ricky in the chat. So there's a lot of chat there, and thank you all for being here. And I probably won't get to every comment, but I think this one is pretty fitting. Ricky in the chat says they were messing with anything they could get their hands on. Going back to the claims about that's the Camp Hero, the Montauk base, the Air Force base, and everything that came after. People claim there's claims that were made by people through books and other projects that the back in World War II, the researchers that were part of the Operation Paperclip from World War II, again bringing these scientists from Germany, these Nazi scientists, they brought them there to the, and that's something that we know that has happened. That's not even really theory at this point. But where it goes into claims more so than any facts, as far as we know, is they set up some of these scientists in the all the underground facilities in the base, and that's where that Montauk project was born. That's also what led to that Philadelphia experiment. That's also, of course, what led to those experiments that were done on children that they captured, which are some of the people that came forward as adults. Now, some of that, from what I've heard, was based on hypnotic regression. And I've heard a lot of people that do shows on all these things talk about how that's can be tricky if it's not done correctly, if it's done with leading questions or anything like that. So I don't know where I'm at on that, but still, just the amount of people that have come forward saying that there was something going on there. And I think with all these things, even if not everything that is claimed is accurate, if there's any bit of it that is, it's still anomalous. It's still strange, and it's still, in so many of these cases, not good. So, but yeah, that location,
Yeah.
it just does seem like there's a lot going on there. So
There's a
we have
lot going on there. I mean, just I didn't actually before we even started the show, I didn't put it together that I mean, I was like, Montauk's only like so far away. It's so that we have that. That's interesting. But then to account that it's in the same county, and then the use of that area, that land being used in all of those wars, all the way back to the Revolutionary War, and probably before that, but just interesting. I wonder though, with the Lutz family and that house, you know, they changed the windows, they changed the address, and they report no further paranormal activity as far as we're aware. I mean, it makes you wonder about the whole village and that whole, area, like how much, I wonder how many, how much military family and I wonder what the percentage is, especially with the base and everything else, or I don't know if I don't know that it's still active. But things like that, and even at the time, so 74 was the occasion with the Amityville situation, and, Montauk was going on at that time, so that's really interesting too, because you have, Montauk starting in the late '60s, Amityville in '74, so just really about a 5-year window, so that's odd. Um, I don't know, I wanna think that there's some kind of something to it. They were also open water to it, they were on the coast, it was the property itself was out, it had a dock to the little inlet there of the island.
right.
If they did open up something, I mean, if we even conceive of the idea that they did somehow, I don't know, if anything changed the way that the environment was interacting due to, the frequencies or the radio frequencies or something like that, it could have had an effect, but I haven't really found any other right now because I didn't look, but any other Amityville scenarios in that location except for the Lisk killer, that there were he was like the Lisk killer, this is a current thing going on right now where he's linked to like 4 or 5 deaths. They found like 4 bodies and they were all about 500 feet apart, and they're literally right across from the Amityville location on the map, the location of the Amityville horror house. So that's kind of weird. But necessarily doesn't mean that definitely not a connection with that, but there's a connection with that area being kind of odd, and they have a huge density of population, but not right there. Amityville is a town or village of 1,000 people. But if you go out, there are other bigger city areas, nearby that are these huge folds of people. So it's really weird to have this sort of low crime and these well, supposedly low crime that they claim it's low crime, but you had like 127 bodies or something like that out in the open from the 70s to current now that were obviously murdered by someone because some were found in like suitcases and so on and so forth. There's something, and that was all along Giglow Beach. Giglow Beach is directly across from the Amityville house, and then also too in the same county as the Montauk Project. So people just doing these really bizarre things. And actually, the prosecuting attorney in the case for the Lisk killer, the Long Island serial killer, he's making claims of all kinds of stuff like cannibalism and packs and stuff like that. And actually, he's come under a lot of scrutiny about that. If anyone looks up that case right now, that's going on right now, the things he is saying. And the daughter of that serial killer, or supposed, alleged serial killer, he's this wealthy, like he was this very affluent architect in New York City. And so that's really interesting. But he lived in this very modest home, in that county, the one being accused of it. But his daughter is like this, she does this, she's come under scrutiny too because of this artwork that she does, depicting these almost they say that they are like demonic, paintings and stuff like that. And they show like what looks like a murder scene or something like that. She's painting all this really ugly stuff, that people would come under scrutiny. We're talking about like, you know, looks like it's you could look it up yourself and see, and we don't do screen share or anything like that, but it is really bizarre what she may have seen, or that she may be people are speculating that there might be something kind of going on in that region, but stuff's going on everywhere. But that particular location and the Montauk Project thing, Montauk Project, we're gonna have to like look much further into that, see what's going on with that. I think.
Yeah, we can do that sometime. I know there's at least one book on it.
Yeah, sometime in
Yeah,
the future.
yeah, we can do that definitely. Also, I will put in the episode description. Friend of the show, Ricky from the Anything Is Possible podcast, did a show. I'm not sure if it's a short or if it's a full show, but either way, did a video on the Montauk Project and time travel, mind control, all those things. So he
Oh,
shared that
cool.
link in the chat there. I'm not good at arranging technical stuff for that all to play through and get recorded. Otherwise, I would. But we'll definitely include that in the episode description, and that way people can go and check that out too. Because there's just so much, and one person or two people can only do so much research in one time, and so whatever is out there that we can find is great. So yeah, this is but yeah, we can definitely do a deeper dive into that and see what connections. Because I actually have listened to the whole all four of the first seasons of Stranger Things.
Oh,
So
cool.
I think if we can dig into that, then there might be things that I recognize from that, and I can look up actual connections too. I mean, once we get going with that. So
All right.
yeah, but there's just I do think that like I was saying earlier, UFO stuff, ghost stuff, anomalous anything. I think it does happen everywhere, but once you get, and this is something we're going to talk about too later on in another show, we already have kind of planned, is that whenever you have any kind of large organization, and usually, a lot of times it does seem to be government, military, that kind of thing. I think that's just going to lead to, I mean, that's first of all, you get that many people in one area, focused on figuring out what you can figure out, whether it's good or bad or whatever the purposes are for using it. That's still a lot of. I do think that just energy is everywhere, and it's always shifting and changing and being manipulated in different ways. And when you get that much going on in one area, with military bases and there's also there was also a mental health facility in that Long Island, in that area. And
Oh, what'd
let
you
me
find
see.
about that?
Let me see here. I will find one of the articles here and find the name of the place. I don't think it's there anymore, but it was there. And okay, so Kings Park Psychiatric Center was once a sprawling mental institution. Um, it's in Kings Park. I don't know where that's at in the state, but or the region. It is in Long Island, but it's not. So yeah, it's not open as far as I can tell. But it was opened. It opened in the late 19th century, and so there again you have things happening in the past. It housed thousands of patients over the years, and of course, as is the case with so many of these kinds of facilities, there's a lot of unfortunate treatments and living conditions, inhumane conditions there, that happen because of just the practices at the time and overcrowding and all these things. Now, apparently, it closed. It didn't close, so it actually lasted for a while. It didn't close until the 1990s. So it was there before all the Amityville stuff, but it lasted after all that too. Um, it's abandoned buildings that became a magnet for urban explorers and paranormal investigators, because of reports of apparitions, sounds of voices, footsteps, and this is a whole set of buildings apparently. So
Right.
this is that's really, it's not that far either. Apparently, I mean, it's like I said in that same. It's in Long Island.
It looks like it's right across the other side of the island. If you look on the map I'm looking at, you have Montauk, being at the tip of the island. It's in Suffolk County. And then you have, Amityville. Let me look here. And basically over on Smithtown Bay, so across Long Island on the other side, you have, let me look here. There's West Lawn. So you have Amityville. If you look, I mean, it's like basically like a triangulated, like you can go from Amityville and go sort of, I guess, west or wait, east. And then you go northeast and hit that state park where this institution is located. And then if you go east, of course, it's just basically right above where the whole Amityville it's all on the same island, and it's directly across on the other side of the island, essentially. That whole island then. Now, it's not unusual that you have a mental institution, but I think that the link between we've just heard so many things about the use of mental institutions. I mean, I wonder what the population on average for that mental institution at that time. They would have these huge populations in these hospitals. But I guess I think there's the military aspect of it and the military base. I feel like there must be something to that. And then why that would be is, again, like, what is the military doing that has such a prevalence
Right.
that it could even encapsulate and create sort of just a vacuum of energy of sorts, if they're doing I don't know what kind of experiments or how much levity to the Montauk Project we wanna give, because I mean, we're not talking about the Montauk Project tonight necessarily. I mean, we are sort of vicariously talking about it, but with the Amityville house, I mean, what we know of it was just that apparently, initially, it was just a massacre, a personal family massacre of sorts. But then there's the rumors that it could have been linked to the mafia or the mob. And then you have it all located and happening in a site where there's a great deal of military um, projects going on all the way back from the Revolutionary War, the Spanish War, and then both world wars. And then you have the Montauk situation. I don't know. I think that there's probably something. It's just why would there be some kind of connection? Why would there be? And taking that kind of seriously or wondering if there is a connection because what are I mean, I guess it could just be the odds. So, but definitely there's a lot going on there, you know. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's also, as I said, there's UFO encounters that apparently happen there. Even in one case, there's let's see here. So, of course, now part of the Montauk base is this report um of aliens and UFOs in that region. Apparently, um, there's now this is of course depends on who you talk to, who how much credit you give to this idea, but but I do think there's people that have seen these things. Um, reptilian like aliens have been seen or have visited that location as well. There was a book. So this is the book that I think um, is about this. It's called The Montauk Project: Experiments in Time, and people still visit the area to try to figure out what was going on there. But of course, like I said, you can't get to any of the buildings. But now there's also another place here, South Haven Park. Apparently, there was as far as reports go, there was a reported crash of an unknown, basically UFO, back in the early 1990s. That's funny timing, right in the middle of the when that King's that institution closed. And also, the park was mysteriously closed just after the crash, but officials said it was due to duck hunting and not an alien cover up. Even if it wasn't an alien crash, what were it always is weird when there's this reported crash that happens, a reported weird event, and then a place gets closed. To me, that always makes me wonder what's going on there. There's a place called Fire Island, and it says that according to the National UFO Reporting Center, it says that at one point there was a group of people that were hiking from Davis Park to Walsh Hill. They reported seeing a light that came from the sky and flew over the area. And so they saw this light and then it flew away. There's also, now this is something I've always wondered about, why this happens. I've heard of some other accounts now. There was in 2017, so relatively recently, on July 4th, there were witnesses in, wow, I don't know how you would say this, Patchogue? Pat, it's literally the way you'd think of patch, Patchhogue, say that 2 UFOs appeared during a fireworks show. I have heard of this in many other locations. And apparently these objects moved out of the area after that. Now, apparently that's what I wanted to cover too in this show. There is a mention in the Mothman Prophecies by John Keel. Talks about the experiences of a radio DJ, and I forgot about this until I found this other day. Jay Perro, who said that they saw UFOs at Mount Misery in West Hills Park, which is in Huntington, in Long Island, back in the 1960s. And the area had already been known for sightings. Perro and others that had reported seeing these things in the sky, and they also reported being visited by men in black asking about their experience. So not only do you have on Long Island reports of aliens and UFOs and ghosts and who knows what else, experiments, you have men in black added to that. And apparently after she reported this and shared this all on the radio, she got weird phone calls. And as far as they sounded weird, the voices sounded weird. And a lot of times they were threatening, inviting her to meet them at the site. But basically, the idea there is, stop talking about this. So that's a lot going on, again, in one island, in one state. There's a lot there. And I literally have 10 articles about this. I can share these all in the Discord if you all want later. Like I said, there's too many to just share right in the in the episode description. It'd just be a huge episode description. But yeah, there's just so much there, and I do wonder how many. Is this unusual, or are there all kinds of anomalous stuff in any location that has ever had or does have any kind of government or military installation, or these mental health facilities where there's people going through so much with their own minds, and then also the surroundings, especially the further back you go, all that energy being stored and or released. What does that all do to everything in terms of just what can that allow or can that generate to have happen?
I don't know. But I think what one aspect of this is really weird. So you have Montauk, at the tip of the island in the same county as the Amityville Horror thing, which is very distracting from that. One or the other will distract from the other, it seems. But you have Hudson Canyon. Hudson Canyon is a submarine canyon that extends from Hudson River, and it's 10,500 feet deep below sea level. Can you imagine? So if you look at Long Island and you come south in the ocean there in that region, the depths go as deep as it's 3,500 meters, 10,500 feet deep. And then, so that's crazy. I mean, I think that's just, it's this, huge gorge of depth of ocean off of the coast down there, south of Long Island in the ocean. So you have that. I don't know.
Well, that region, that Hudson Valley, if that's the
Yeah,
same area, there's a whole ton of. I've heard shows about that.
it is. It's
Talking about
ancient. It says it's an ancient extension of the Hudson Valley. So that,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, I've heard shows about just UFO sightings and ghost sightings, all kinds of anomalous things happening in that area too. So it's not that far away from that. Um, so yeah, that's amazing that we have that connection. And like you said, I mean, the that is a lot of water. Who knows what could be under there as far as any kind of military or as far as anything else anomalous that's there.
Yeah.
Um, Coming and going because we know that UFOs have been seen going in and out of water. So
Yeah.
that's amazing.
It is. It's just weird because it's like, well, but the Amityville Horror House and the Mafia and the military and Montauk base, and then that gorge there of, 10,500 feet deep of ocean. And you have Long Island Sound. It's not that deep at all. It's 300. I mean, it is deep, 350 feet at the deepest point near that mental institution you're talking about on the other side of the island, sort of directly across from the region where Amityville is located, of Suffolk County, and you have Suffolk County being the location for both the Amityville incident and the Montauk project are in the same county on Long Island. A lot going on in that little triangulated area there. And then a huge population too. Not in the villages. These are very small villages of like 1,000 people. And then the Babylon aspect. That that's the only location in the United States. And you would think that the town Babylon, for example, Salem, there are other Salems around the United States, but there are no other Babylon. There are no other towns named Babylon anywhere in the United States except for right there. And Amityville is located in it. And, you know, Suffolk County is Suffolk County. The town of Babylon is located in Suffolk County. So I think there's a sort of mystery around why they even named it that to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. The mother of one of the pioneers there, settlers there, have it saying that about the area. This will be the new Babylon. Um, it was she picking up on something?
That meaning the gate of the gods. So that is
Yeah,
odd.
yeah. I do wonder too. I didn't see a lot about this, which doesn't surprise me because it doesn't usually get a ton of. You have to almost like go directly to the people there. I do wonder about the what the people native to that area knew about it, because so often you hear that these places that they become famous later because of things that happened to the people that came to this country to settle it later. These things happen to them, but then so many places you hear, if you look into them more, there's reports of weird things happening in those areas from Native American Indians. So I wonder. Now there was something about um, reportedly. I forget the name of the group that was there in that general region of Amityville. There's some debate about that anyway. Which tribes were where, and which if there was a burial ground there, of course, which has become such a trope, but also I think that it can, just because it's a trope doesn't mean it's not always. It doesn't happen in some places where there's a Native American Indian burial ground in a location, and people come there and they build things, and we've talked about this before. The idea of the destruction or disturbance or ruining of burial sites, and how so many people throughout time in different parts of the world say that that's a way to get spirits to come up to come out because they're angry that where they've been buried has been ruined, has been changed. You hear that a lot, so I wonder if there's anything to that. But then, of course, that could go back to. I mean, there's a lot that's been built on the island. If any part of any one of those locations was formerly a burial site, and the further back you go, if it was a burial site, but it was hundreds to thousands of years ago, then you might not even find anything, but you still could get activity if you did build on such a location, I would imagine.
We should do a show about burial mounds at some point too.
Sounds good. That's
All
the
right.
amazing thing about doing these shows is that we always find new things to cover, which is good because if we didn't, then it'd be hard eventually to figure out shows to do. But but yeah, no. So we have the Montauk project itself now, and we have burial mounds. I also think we need to do a show at some point on bodies of water. Why so many odd things seem to happen there. And not just ghost sightings or UFOs, just ships going down in certain areas for no reason, ships vanishing, planes vanishing. I think that might be something we have to do at some point as well, because there's a whole lot there. Obviously, people have heard of the Bermuda Triangle, but there's other triangles all around the planet. There's some triangles that aren't even above water. But I think we should cover water at some point as well, because
We will, yeah. That's a great idea.
yeah. So that's good. But
And
yeah,
are you doing trick or treat tonight?
I am, yeah, and I think we should probably get that going pretty soon. But we don't have to stop now. But yeah, I think that's 3 good topics for future shows. But yeah, anyone that's in the chat, if you want to stick around after we get done with this recording, we'll be taking like a 5 for 10-minute break, and then I'll be starting another. Alaskan Triangle, Ricky there in the chat. I'll be starting that other show, the Patreon show, which you all get to listen to, and if you're in the Discord, you get to be part of it if you want. So, yeah, I think that'll do it for now. Jen, thank you for being on the show with me as always. I could not do these without you, at least not as well. So
this was neat. This one right here was very interesting. It actually kind of evolved too as we were talking about it. So I love when that happens, and that's neat.
What I think if we were to script it and go with a detailed history of any one of these things, like right away, it wouldn't be as interesting. It would just be reading things.
What ends up happening is you don't even know where you're going with it, and this is actually very organic. It kind of follows a sort of, just the trail of thought, and it leads to, just finding stuff. It's odd coincidences at the least. So, thank you for having me, James. I had a great time as always. Thank you so much. Everybody have a good night.
No problem. Thank you. And so that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for being here and listening in. Like I said, these shows, and special thanks as always to Jen for joining me for these shows, because I could do them myself, but I have done these kind of topic-based shows, but I'm my own. But it's not easy, and it's a lot more fun with a great co-host. So everyone take care, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal.